Hello, I'm the fourth accountant. It's another day and it's another Labour announcement. So at the time of recording, Rachel Reeves has recently announced that she is going to be introducing or implementing the Great British Summer Discount. So what this will involve is that there'll be a reduction on sales tax in the UK. So we call this value added tax or VAT for children's entertainment. So this will be things like theme parks for children's tickets, children's meals, and also other children's activities like soft play, parks where you have to pay entry, etc., etc. And the idea here is to help people with the cost of living during the summer break, where there'll be a lot of pressure on parents, for example, to find extra financial resources to arrange for childcare and arrange for meals where normally their children may be given a meal at school, meaning that they don't themselves have to pay for that meal. So it'll be a free meal is often an option children of a certain age can receive in the UK. So it's a really good initiative on the face of it, and it's very similar to what happened during COVID, actually. So to stimulate and help protect the hospitality sector and the catering sector, which was badly impacted by the fact that nobody was going out during COVID and during the pandemic, they then removed, I believe, entirely the VAT and often supplemented meals that people were sort of buying when they went to restaurants. I think there were actually 2-for-1 deals at the time. So it was a really generous incentive that the government was giving, basically with the idea that it was helping protect the businesses, particularly the retail businesses and the restaurant industry. And also, as I say, giving a discount to people who are spending money eating out, essentially. And this discount I'm describing, which will be in place in August and September in the UK, is a similar thing. So I believe there will be about a 15% discount. So normally VAT is around 20%. It can vary depending on the service and the product. And for children's services and children products like clothing, again, it can vary and can potentially be zero. But where there is VAT, this initiative that Rachel Reeves is announcing will basically reduce it further still. So broadly speaking then, what this will mean for anybody who would normally be going out, eating out, taking their children to theme parks, taking their children to soft play, and to the cinema, because that is included. If businesses pass on this discount, and this is what this whole initiative is relying on, then it will basically result in a 15% discount on spending in this area. And as I say, this is a really good initiative on the face of it, because it will help a lot of families who, as I say, will have this pressure to keep their children entertained. But I think for me, one of the things, again, I do wonder actually when it comes to Labour and when they announce these things, because often they're very proud of themselves when they make these announcements, is wouldn't it just be better to reduce the income tax burden? So during the last budget that Rachel Reeves presented, she introduced a lot of stealth taxes, as I call them, as many commentators call them. So she introduced rental tax, she introduced additional tax on savings, she made more restrictions on ISA. So this was a tax exemption around savings, which again means that more of your savings, if you're under 65, come into tax. And also she introduced a tax on houses over 5 million and 2 million as well, which I discussed in my last video. So, and also she introduced a number of duties as well on gambling in particular. So these were all taxes that were basically impacting ordinary people and workers more so than anybody else, essentially. And as I say, to basically placate the voting demographic within the UK, she's now turned around and said, okay, for the summer period, I'm going to reduce the amount of VAT that certain people, i.e. parents, will have to pay when taking their children out and entertaining them. But as I say, it would just be a lot better if they just did more to reduce the tax burden on workers in general. Because the reason I'm calling this out, and the reason why I have some reservation around this initiative, even though, as I say, anything is good, is that this is basically only going to benefit parents who have disposable income, right? So the very poorest in society who would not actually be considering, or may not even be in a position economically to consider these things, like taking their children to a theme park, taking their children to the cinema, taking them to soft play, which many of us may take for granted. But there is a growing demographic of people that are on benefits, for example, in social housing, for example, where these things would actually be luxuries. Where is the respite for them? And considering what is going on in the Strait of Hormuz, as well as inflation generally, based on basically worsening borrowing terms that the government is facing from the financial markets, the cost of essentials has gone up quite significantly. So things like eggs, bread, wheat, these are not luxury items. These are basic fundamental things people need to consume to survive. This is going up, on a weekly basis, I would say, actually, in the UK, and I think around the world, it's something everybody's observing as well. So this great summer discount, as Rachel Reeves, positions it, doesn't address these very fundamental issues that the very poorest and vulnerable people in society, and this will include, retired people that are also in poverty, it's not addressing those needs as well. And again, I think for me, this is just another example, following on from my most recent video, where Labour fail to understand, the needs of their political base. And in some ways, they completely miss the mark in terms of what they're doing. Because as I say, this will be something they're particularly proud of. And as I say, for a large demographic of working people, this will be a good thing. But as I say, the most vulnerable in society that need protection will not benefit from this. Whilst if you had just reduced the tax burden on workers, then everybody benefits, because it puts them in a position that whether it's discretionary spending, like taking your kids out, or whether it's just paying for the essentials that you need, and or just your general expenses if you don't have children, everybody would benefit equally. And then the way to offset that is thinking about different tax systems that can then allow the government to find the tax that it needs. So as I say, one of the things I talked about during Rachel Reeves' budget announcement, for example, is rather than introducing a wealth tax, as she puts it, on homes of UK citizens, why not think about taxing the real estate of properties owned by venture capitalists or private equity funds, for example, or foreign-based owners? Why not tax those properties instead? So for me, that's something that could have been thought about rather than taxing UK citizens and their homes, for example. And just more generally, thinking about a wealth tax to then allow them then to reduce this burden on income. So I think for me, as I say, I have mixed feelings around this reduction in VAT for parents, essentially. As I say, we will take anything we're given at this point in time. And I think for me, it feels a bit desperate, considering, as I say, the pressure the Labour Party is feeling at the moment, considering, the controversies the leader has had, Keir Starmer, but also the resurgence and the growing popularity of the Reform Party, which we saw in the local elections in the UK, but also the Green parties as well, who have made a lot of inroads, as well as nationalist parties in Wales and Scotland. So it seems as though, as I say, Labour are desperate to find anything that shows, they understand, the working class, so to speak, albeit they seem to have forgotten the most vulnerable in society with this VAT discount. So yeah, those were my thoughts around the announcement. Mixed feelings, as I say, and I think it doesn't go far enough to protect the most vulnerable. But let me know what your thoughts are. But until next time, peace.